Many years ago, before Wahala discovered Afolasade's home address, she was already known for one thing: spending money with confidence and explanation. Afolasade did not just spend money, she preached it, she defended it and justified it. She made it sound like wisdom. She grew up in a compound where money never stayed long. Once it entered, it greeted everybody and left immediately. Her father used to say money was shy. Her mother believed money respected generosity. So, when Afolasade started earning her own salary, she continued the family tradition with her full chest. According to her, money was currency. Currency meant current, and current meant movement. Anything that stayed too long in one place became old. Anything old became useless. That was her theory. Money is not yam, she would say confidently. You don't store it until it starts growing high. By the time she married Kayode, her husband, she had already mastered the art of empty accounts and a happy face. Unfortunately, Kayode was the opposite. He was gentle, calm, and very intentional. He believed in planning, saving, and preparing for rainy days. But Afolasade believed rain was God's responsibility. As expected, the first month of their marriage exposed the differences. One day, Kayode sat at the small dining table with a notebook and calculator. He cleared his throat and said, "Shade, let us plan our expenses for the month." Afolasade looked up from her phone and squinted. "Plan?" Kayode nodded. "Yes, rent, food, fuel, savings." Afolasade dropped the phone slowly and stared at him. "Kayode, who offended you?" Kayode giggled. "I am serious." Afolasade could not believe her ears. "So, you want to cage money?" she asked. Kayode shook his head. "No, I want to guide it." She laughed and shook her head. "Money is currency. Let it flow. Current does not stay in one place or it will become old." Kayode blinked. "Old?" he asked. "Yes now," she said. "That is why people save and still suffer. Their money is stale. It just exposes people's fear." Kayode rubbed his eyes. "Shade, saving does not mean fear." But she hesitated. "Fear is what makes people trap money. I refuse to insult God like that. Do you know who my heavenly Father is?" That was how their first savings discussion died before it even breathed. Every month followed the same pattern. Salary alert would enter. Afolasade would clap, but before Kayode finished checking his bank app, the money would already be moving. Afolasade was either using the money to get foodstuff for the house, or to get a new blender because the old one looked tired, or to pay for a friend's birthday contribution. On most times, it was to sort out a church seed, then another seed or a special seed. She was very magnanimous that she would even pay transport fare for somebody's cousin. Whenever Kayode asked, "Did we plan for this one?" Afolasade would reply cheerfully, "Money does not like interrogation." One evening, the landlord sent a message reminding tenants of the upcoming rents. Kayode sighed and said, "We need to prepare." But Afolasade waved her hand. "The landlord will not die if we delay small." Kayode froze in shock. "You don't mean it, do you? Small delay adds stress." "Stress is not my portion, no," Afolasade replied confidently. One week when fuel unexpectedly finished, Kayode suggested they manage, but Afolasade shook her head and said, "Managing is for people that don't trust God." So, she borrowed money for that fuel. Later, when the electricity bill came early, she laughed and said, "Light people are always in a hurry." And she borrowed again for it. Even though Kayode didn't approve of her habits, her friends loved her. They would always say, "Afolasade has a good heart." Simi, her closest friend, admired her deeply. One afternoon, while eating meat she did not contribute to, she told Afolasade, "You are living the life I want. I envy you." Afolashade laughed and replied proudly, "What is life if you don't enjoy it?" Kayode watched all this quietly. One night, after Afolashade gave out money meant for their groceries, Kayode finally spoke bluntly. "What if emergency happens?" Afolashade smiled calmly and said, "Emergency will meet my God waiting." Kayode was silent in shock. Inside his head, worry was growing legs. However, outside, Afolashade was still cheerful, confident, generous, and very sure of herself. She did not know that emergencies do not knock before entering. They do not greet faith, and they do not respect vibes. They only ask one question: are you prepared? Well, Afolashade couldn't be bothered about that one. The only thing she believed was that money behaved like an obedient water. It enters, flows, blesses everybody, and lives quietly. She did not know yet that water could flood a house if it lost direction. For now, she was still smiling confidently. One particular month, Kayode's salary entered in the morning, but by evening, Afolashade had already created destinations for it. That evening, Kayode came out of the bedroom holding a fuel receipt. "Shade, why is this fuel always finishing suddenly?" Afolashade, who was in the kitchen stirring soup with confidence, shouted, "Fuel does not like staying long. It evaporates." "Fuel evaporates?" "Yes, now, that is science." Kayode opened his mouth, closed it, and decided to sit down. That night, Afolashade received a phone call. "Shade, abeg, I am stranded. I need your help." She did not even hesitate. She just ordered, "Send your account number." Kayode looked up. "Who is that?" "Just somebody," she said. "How much are you giving out?" he asked. "Just small money now." When Kayode checked his phone later and saw the debit alert, he screamed, "That is not small money." Afolashade smiled and said, "Money grows wings when it plants a seed." The following week, Kayode suggested to Afolashade that they consider a corporate savings plan at work. "It will help discipline our spending. They will deduct the money automatically before you even see it," he explained. Afolashade laughed so hard that she almost dropped her phone. "Hey, so you want to hide money from yourself? Just imagine." Oh, Kayode shook his head. "No, it just helps discipline," Afolashade argued. "Discipline is for children. We are adults." She waved it off like a mosquito. That same week, electricity bill arrived early again, and the amount was unexpectedly higher than usual. Kayode frowned when he saw it. "This bill is serious," he complained. Afolashade glanced at it and shrugged. "Light people are getting aggressive every month, so we should reduce our expenses," Kayode suggested. Afolashade rolled her eyes. "How many times will I tell you? Reducing expenses is fear talking." That night, Kayode tried to persuade her again. "Shade, we need savings for emergencies." She turned to him slowly and said, "Kayode, answer me honestly. When was the last time God failed?" Kayode sighed. "That is not the point," Afolashade insisted. "It is the point. Tomorrow belongs to God." Kayode shot back. "Today belongs to rent." Afolashade laughed. "You worry too much." Kayode went quiet again. Unfortunately, small signs of problems started appearing. For the first time, the school fees for Kayode's younger sibling was delayed. Afolashade insisted they would sort it later. Then, groceries finished earlier than expected, and she confidently borrowed to buy more. Repayment became a suggestion, not a plan. While all this were happening, her friends still praised her. "Afolashade, you have a big heart," Simi said one evening while they sat outside drinking chilled juice that Afolashade paid for, of course. "Life is short," Afolashade replied. "Why hoard money like yam?" The little money in her purse overheard and sighed deeply. That same night, when Afolashade gave another illogical sermon about the current power of money, Kayode secretly opened a savings account. It was nothing big, just something to breathe with. When the next salary entered, he transferred a small amount into it secretly. 2 days later, Afolashade found out about it and she screamed, "Kayode! Yes? What is this account? Kayode frowned. It is my savings. Her eyes widened slowly. So you are hiding money now? You have started hiding things from me. Are you cheating? Kayode's eyes widened in disbelief. No! What are you even saying? I am just planning. Afolashade shook her head in disappointment. I expected more from you. This is unbelief disguised as wisdom. Kayode refuted. No, it is preparation. Immediately, she picked up the phone and mumbled, "Who needs help today?" Before Kayode could even stop her, she transferred the entire savings to someone in need. Dear, now the money is free again. Kayode did not shout, but that silence scared her more than shouting would have. After another month passed, Kayode's side income unexpectedly reduced. He mentioned cutting back again, but Afolashade smiled confidently and said, "This is when sowing works best. We need to sow a seed." As such, instead of reducing spending, she increased generosity. The money meant for fuel went to church offering. The money meant for groceries was used to pay for a surprise birthday cake. And the money meant for data was used to buy gifts for visitors. When Kayode complained, she replied with peace and confidence, "Relax, something will come." Well, something did not come, oh. One evening, Kayode returned home tired and said, "We need to talk." Afolashade sat down and spoke first. "Before I forget, I borrowed money today." Kayode frowned. "Borrowed?" "Yes, now. The interest is high, oh." Afolashade paused and then continued. "But don't worry, money circulates." Kayode cut her off. "Not when it is borrowed." For the first time, her confidence shook slightly. "Why didn't you tell me earlier now?" Kayode leaned closer and said, "I have been telling you this since day one." She laughed nervously. "Don't worry, you worry too much." But later that night, when she checked their accounts and saw numbers she was not used to seeing, silence entered her chest. Still, she brushed it off and affirmed, "God is not finished with my case." Unknown to her, money was already getting tired of movement because its direction was missing. It wanted to sit down stubbornly and refuse to answer to anyone. The main problem started on an ordinary Tuesday with nothing dramatic. There was no thunder or bad dream. All it took was just a phone call that entered quietly and shattered everything. Kayode answered the call calmly at first. "Yes, hello." As he listened, his face changed slowly. One look at him would tell you that something was wrong. Afolashade noticed it immediately. She asked, "Who is that?" He ended the call and sat down. "My younger brother just had an accident." She paused. "Accident? How?" "Bike accident, and he needs surgery." She waved her hand lightly. "Oh, thank God he's alive." "Yes, but the hospital wants deposit now." "How much?" she asked. When Kayode mentioned the amount, Afolashade laughed at first. The laughter came out automatically. "That one is small money now." Kayode looked at her. "Small money that we don't have." Silence entered the room like an uninvited guest. Afolashade cleared her throat and said, "Check the accounts." Kayode checked it and turned the phone around to her. The balance stared at them with disrespect. Afolashade blinked. No, this one is not correct now." Kayode refreshed the page, but it remained correct. Her smile reduced slightly. "Oh, okay, let us borrow." "From who?" he asked. She picked up her phone confidently and said, "Simi will help." Much to her disappointment, Simi did not pick. She called another friend. That one said, "Shade, I just paid school fees, so sorry, I can't help now." She called another one who said, "My money is tied down currently." Another one said, "Next week, maybe." Slowly, her confidence started leaking. She tried her church contacts next, but prayer filled the air. No single money came out. At least they tried now. Kayode finally spoke. "The hospital said if we don't pay today, they will delay the surgery." Afolashade sat down slowly. "Delay?" "Yes, but money circulates now. Kayode looked at her sadly. Money needs direction to circulate. That sentence entered. They thought of what to do and then decided to borrow a smaller amount at a high interest. It was not enough, but at least it was something to hold down the situation with. They rushed to the hospital. The nurses did not even attend to them. The doctor told them plainly, "We'll do what we can, but payment is needed." Afolashade stood outside the ward and stared at the floor helplessly. This was the first time generosity did not answer her call. By evening, Kayode's phone rang again. The voice on the other end said, "The company is restructuring. As a result, your contract is on hold." Kayode closed his eyes and breathed deeply. Afolashade heard it all. She asked him, "What does on hold mean?" Kayode chuckled bitterly. "It means no salary this month." Afolashade's mouth opened, but words did not come out. That night, they sat in silence. There were no jokes, no sermons, and no encouragement. To make matters worse, the landlord sent another message reminding tenants of rent. Afolashade stared at the message and whispered, "Not now." But it was happening now. Food finished earlier than expected. Fuel finished. Data finished. And even excuses finished. She went to the kitchen one morning and opened the cupboard. But the cupboard looked back at her with honesty. Kayode suggested, "We need to sell something." She laughed nervously and asked, "Sell what?" "The extra freezer, the blender, the things we bought without thinking." Her chest tightened. "But these are our things." Kayode cut in. "Well, things can be replaced, but peace cannot." So they sold some items, but the money went off quickly because emergency does not negotiate. Miraculously, without any deliverance or sermon, Afolashade began to change unconsciously. She stopped offering unsolicited help. She avoided calls and she pretended not to hear people's problems. One afternoon, she sat on the bed and cried. Kayode heard it but did not interrupt. Later, she spoke up. "I thought generosity would protect me." Kayode replied calmly, "Generosity without wisdom is just leakage." She wiped her eyes and asked, "Why didn't you stop me?" Kayode eyed her. "Don't even start." Silence returned. Her friends soon noticed the change. "Shade, you are now quiet these days." She tried to cover it by smiling. "I am just resting." Well, inside her, shame was learning how to sit comfortably. The day her brother-in-law finally came out of surgery, Afolashade felt relief mixed with guilt. If only I had saved small. If only I had planned small. If only I had listened once. But money does not respond to regrets. That night, she lay awake and whispered to herself, "Maybe current also needs a channel." After the emergency settled a little, their life did not return to normal. It only returned to more problems because the money shortage issue was still there. The house remained quiet. The television stayed off longer and even laughter began to ask for permission before entering their house. One afternoon, Afolashade was really hungry, but when she entered the kitchen and the empty container stared back at her, she called out to Kayode. "Kayode!" "Yes," he answered. "Did you remove the rice?" Kayode replied from the room, "No." She opened the fridge. The lights came on, but there was nothing edible in there. She closed it gently as if it offended her. Kayode came out later and looked inside. "We need to shop." "Oh, with what?" Afolashade asked. He did not need to reply. The silence was enough. They started adjusting without announcing it. They stopped buying juice. Water became their official drink. They also reduced meats. Eggs became a special occasion food and bread was sliced thinner. One evening, Afolashade suggested eating outside. Kayode looked at her and asked, "Outside where?" She laughed it off. "Just a small place now." He replied, "Let us eat inside." That was when the reality entered her chest properly. Her phone began to ring less. Friends that used to call for help now called to gist only. Simi called one day to say, "Shade, I am coming over." Afolashade hesitated. Maybe another day." Simi laughed. Are you hiding food? Afolashade forced a laughter. Something like that. When Simi finally visited, she looked around and commented, you people are quiet, so Afolashade smiled tightly. We are conserving energy. Simi joked. Money too? That joke landed badly. Kayode cleared his throat and left the room. Later that night, Afolashade said, people would think we are suffering. Kayode replied, but are we not suffering? Let them think. Thinking is cheaper than borrowing. The words hurt, but they were clean. Afolashade started replaying her past statements in her head. Money is currency. Current flows. Saving is fear. They sounded different now. More like very foolish and irresponsible. One afternoon, Kayode suggested visiting the bank. For what? She asked. To understand our situation better. At the bank, the manager, Mr. Fatai, welcomed them politely, and without wasting time, he showed them the numbers. This was what entered. This was what left. This is what is remaining. Afolashade stared at the statement as if it was someone else's life. Mr. Fatai continued. Madam, generosity is good, but planning is better. Saving is not trapping money. It is simply giving the money direction. She nodded slowly. So, saving does not mean I don't trust God. He smiled. Madam, even God plans seasons. That sentence followed her home. That night, Kayode brought out a small notebook. I have been writing our expenses. Afolashade laughed weakly. So you have been spying on me? No, I have been surviving you. She looked at the list and saw how small things added up loudly. Data, fuel, food, giving again. She dropped the book and said, I didn't know it was this much. Kayode smiled. Well, money knows. However, the shame was not done. It came in waves. Afolashade stopped volunteering money immediately, but saying no felt strange in her mouth. It felt like a sin. Sorry, I can't help now. Each time she said it, her chest tightened, but heaven did not come down. After another day of saying, sorry, I can't help now, Afolashade told Kayode, I thought I was generous, so you are, he said. Then, why does it feel like I was careless, she asked. He paused and replied, because generosity without wisdom feels good until responsibility enters. She nodded slowly. The next day, she asked something she had never asked before in her life. How do people save? Kayode looked at her surprised. You want to learn? She sighed. I don't want to go through this again. That was the day Afolashade stopped preaching circulation and started listening to structure. One evening, Kayode brought an envelope home and placed it on the table without drama. What is that? Afolashade asked. Our emergency fund. I got paid something. She stared at the envelope as if it might insult her. How much is inside? Small. How small? She asked. Enough to breathe. She nodded slowly because breathing had now become very important to her. Gradually, she became consistent with saving a fixed amount every week. She didn't save whenever she remembered or whenever she felt led. She saved every single week. The first month felt painful. Anytime Afolashade saw money resting quietly, her fingers itched. Oh, this money is just sitting there helpless, she complained one night. Kayode eyed her. It is sitting so that we don't stand helpless later. That sentence made sense, but she hated that it made sense. Sometimes she still struggled. When someone called for help, she still felt guilty saying no. If someone said, Shade, I beg, she would reply, I don't have. The person would insist, but you always have. Afolashade would still reply, not anymore. And then she would end the call feeling like she committed a crime. But nothing happened to her afterwards. There was no thunder or curse that struck her. Life just continued. And that surprised her. One afternoon, Simi called again and said, you have changed. Afolashade smiled. Maybe I needed to reduce movements. Simi laughed. "Oh, so money is no longer flowing?" Afolashade replied, "It is now flowing with direction." Simi shook her head and said, "I cannot live like that." Afolashade did not argue. She had retired from convincing people. Slowly, stability entered their house. Bills were paid. Bills were paid before deadlines. Fuel did not finish unexpectedly, and their groceries stayed till the end of the week. One evening, the landlord sent a message about rent. Kayode checked the envelope and smiled. "We are ready." Afolashade blinked. "Ready how?" "We already kept the rent aside," he said. For a moment, Afolashade felt something unfamiliar. Peace. She did not feel excitement or pride, just peace. She sat down and exhaled. "So, this is what people who save feel?" Kayode smiled. "You are welcome, don't mention." Moving on, they still gave, but they now did it differently. They practiced planned giving, or better put, purposeful giving. There was no more impulse generosity or emotional transfers. Afolashade started writing down expenses herself. At first, she forgot. Then she remembered. Then it became a habit. One day, she laughed at herself. "I used to think budgeting was a punishment." "What do you think now?" Kayode asked her. "It is protection," she said. That same year, Kayode's job stabilized again and their lives became better. Later, when another emergency came, they handled it better. They opened their emergency envelope, took what was needed and closed it back without borrowing, panic or shame. That night, Afolashade shook her head unbelievably. "I used to confuse faith with recklessness." Kayode turned to face her. "You were just sincere." "Yes," she said, "but sincerity without sense is dangerous." Months later, women started asking her questions about money discipline, not because she was rich, but because they saw the change in her. "How did you stop overspending?" they would ask. "I embarrassed myself first," Afolashade would reply, and they laughed at her response. Afolashade did not become a financial coach overnight. She did not open an Instagram page or print flyers like a motivational coach. She simply told the truth when asked. Most times, she told people, "I nearly ruined my home because I thought saving meant fear." One evening, Simi called again and said, "Shade, I need an advice." Afolashade smiled and confidently said, "Sit down first." That was when she realized that something had changed for real. At night, as she counted the savings envelope again, she shook her head and laughed. Money is still currency, but even current needs a channel. Kayode heard her and smiled. Hi besties. Thank you for watching the story. This story is dedicated to our bestie named Afolashade, whose birthday is today. From the bottom of my heart, I wish you a very blissful birthday, and I pray that money flows to you this year. Money that will birth more money and be used wisely. Please, besties, let's kindly wish her a happy birthday in the comment section. Also, share the story out and give the story a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye!